Hello there, Ray.
Long time no see. How are
Long
you,
time no
Mike?
see. Me and Ray would just joke. Ray thinks I have some surprises up my sleeve, but no surprises tonight. I think this is good. This is our reunited and it feels so good song as a show, as Mike was comment.
Well,
I don't know if you
well,
saw that.
yeah, that's the surprise, right? That everybody we're back together, and
Yeah,
we took a little hiatus, and look, the show is an experiment. The show was always an experiment. It's set up to be that way. Mike and I get along great. We're friends, but we also have our opinions and disagreements pop up here and there, and we're real people, so sometimes real life intervenes a little bit, and but it's nice to be back, Mike.
yeah, and I just want everybody to know it. We didn't send out it's not me, it's you. It's not you, it's me letter or anything like that. How they say it's not you, it's me. You know,
Yeah, listen, people know. I mean, people know partnerships, and whether it's personal, business, whatever, they're complicated, and it's tough because everyone's got their own vision, and I've done a little bit of soul searching and trying to figure out things I need to improve on, and being a little less argumentative is something that I'm going to work on, and trying to listen, and actually hear, not just listen for the fun of it, but to actually listen. I'm working on it, Mike. You know.
Yeah, no, I hear you. It's sort of like you get overloaded, and I'm guilty of that too. And you just listen too much, and you know you just want to say what you feel, and it's tough, but I guess it's a fine balance. But that's what we're here for.
Do you miss me?
I did.
I
I
miss
I,
you.
I I have all my Ray pictures back up in here, and
It's like a breakup. When you break up, you take them all down. Screw them, put them back up. No, but
no,
what's
it
that
was, it was
share? What's
nothing.
that? What's that Peter Cetera song and share?
Oh,
Here we are again.
oh yeah, yeah.
It must be fate.
That's a terrible song.
Write it on our. You don't like that song?
No, no. I love Peter Cetera with Chicago, but then he went that way, and it was just it was
I,
okay. I like when you
I
sing Milli
like that
Vanilli
song.
better, actually, though.
Okay,
That
I mean,
was
I'm working on that too. I'm working on my singing, but I did like that song. I was probably the only grade schooler who liked that song when it came out in the '80s or something like that. But
yeah,
here we are, folks. We're
yeah,
back, and
yes.
like I said, we have Mike and I come from different opinions on some things, not all things, But as you know, many of you, Mike is you're still a registered Republican, right, Mike?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. You haven't changed. You haven't switched over.
No, 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 not.
I'm still a Democrat as far as I know, although that could change any
I
day
have
now.
to admit,
So
though, like we talked a little before, some things I'm seeing a little differently than I did, say even just a few months ago. Some things I see still crystal clear in certain things, but I like to listen to everything, and just go with what's right, in my opinion. So we'll talk
it's
about that later on. Some of the
yeah, we'll get into it.
yeah. So there's yeah. So it'll be interesting. But you want to talk about our guest tonight?
Without further ado, we have a guest. It's nice to have a guest who shows up. People who may have tuned in last week might be know what that's in reference to, but in any regard, that's fine. Stuff happens, I guess. In any event, our friend Reema Rasool is running for Congress. I believe it's still the third congressional district, and she's gracious enough to join us tonight. She had joined us several months ago, so welcome back, Reema.
Thank you. Hey guys, how are you?
How you doing?
Very good. I feel like this is complete full circle because I don't know if you guys remember the last time we spoke, it was literally before the new lines came out. The redistricting lines came out, and we were talking about the gossip that, oh, people are saying this, people are saying that.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we can go back to the tape. I don't know if you have that. Like, I don't know if you have that handily available. You probably don't, probably. But I did say that I heard that we're going to go up north, and then that's what happened.
You
Going
did.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
so
you
a
did
lot
say
of
that.
people.
I don't have it handy. I have a couple eyeglass cases and a lot of pads and things, but I don't have that clip.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. A lot of people looked at the redistricting back when this was proposed, and they looked at, I'm going to call it your district, the third congressional district, and they singled that out because it went, if I'm not mistaken, Rima, it went from like Northport up to Mammoth. I can never say that.
Yes.
Up to Westchester,
Yeah.
and it looked like what that, of course, meant is that it opened it up to not just Long Island is running for that seat, but also for anybody who lived in the city. You don't have to actually live in the district to run for Congress, but obviously most people who live in the
It makes more
district, and
sense.
so you had a situation now when they redistricted and proposed that a number of people who live in the city were starting to run for that district, which sounds fine, but as a Long Islander, I never liked it because I thought that potentially we would lose Long Island representation. But anyway, so how are you feeling about? So that was the proposed new boundaries. Just to recap, and we know that the court struck that down, and now they have come up with new boundaries that have been proposed. Mike, do we have the?
I'm going to pull that up quick. I was looking for the old one. I don't have it handy, but this is the one that we got as of yesterday. This one.
All right. So Reema's number 3. Let's take a look. It looks like
the green.
Yeah, Reema, where is that the north-south go through? I wish it was an overlay telling us like what towns it
is. So basically, this district was also in Suffolk, because it had Huntington. It went in a little bit into Smithtown. Now it is primarily Nassau County. So where you see the line going down, it's pretty much the entire town of Oyster Bay, town of North Hempstead, comes down through Massapequa. This was a North Shore district. We're going all the way down to the South Shore with that little, through Massapequa. We've also gained Westbury. That was not a part of this district before, right in the middle. We've gained Westbury, and then we're going west into Queens. It's Glen Oaks, Douglaston, Bayside, Beechhurst, into Whitestone, a little bit of Queens Village. So we did go a little bit more into Queens, but we completely, took out. This was a 5-county district.
Yeah,
we had Suffolk, Nassau, Westchester, the Bronx, and Queens. So the way they had lined it was really crazy before. I think this makes so much more sense.
Mike, I think my analysis offline was off base because I'm looking at that map again, and based on what Reema says, if she's picking up 3 goes down to Massapequa. So yeah, I'm usually pretty good with geography, Mike. So but disregard what I told you offline because I'm wrong. If she's picking up Massapequa, I don't know how.
Sliver of Massapequa.
But okay, so you get a little bit of Massapequa. It looks like I'm trying to figure out where I am.
Yeah, Ray, the best way, if you just look at the bridges that connect the islands.
We have a little bit of Belrose now also. Belrose, New Hyde Park, Floral Park, a little bit of Garden City. Right. And going down, we have a little bit of Farmingdale now. So as I said, we have the whole pretty much town of Oyster Bay and the town of North Hempstead.
So now, Reema, in terms of the process, with all the chaos that's gone on, where are you and the other candidates in regard? And by the way, I should just mention, as crazy as this redistricting has been, none of this has been on the candidates. You guys just signed up to run, but you didn't have any input as to what the districts looked like. So I feel bad, for those of you who are running this cycle because you really have been kind of spinning your wheels in many different directions. But where are you in terms of the process? What do you have to do? Do you have to repetition at this point?
No. I'm very thankful to the powers that be that, they decided when they were doing all of this, that if you were already on the ballot before the district was considered, unconstitutional, the lines, we would just have to wait for the lines to be produced. Now they have been. The judge is going to hopefully approve these on Friday. And then I'll just have to sign an affidavit with my attorney saying that, like, that petitioning that I did, I'm going to run for this district. Because, a lot of things have changed in these, just in these past 48 hours with a lot of people declaring candidacies that they were not going to, because as you can imagine, the entire state, the entire congressional map, as well as the Senate map, has been relined. So things have changed so drastically that in one district now, we actually have 4 of our elected officials, 4 sitting Congress people are all in the same district right now. So things, think about this in the city, where we had districts, very, for so long, Caroline Maloney was, our Upper East Side representative, Nadler, the West Side. They're both in the same district now. They're going to be running against each other. Imagine, like it's really upside down. I do absolutely foresee more litigation because there is a lot of rumbling, especially because they did chop up the Bronx quite a bit. And, they're like 3 different districts now just for the, for Bronx voters.
Yeah, it looks like at least 3. At least you have.
I think they're actually more. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah. That's tough. I don't know. I bet it changes a little bit,
I think
still.
Yeah. I wonder. I mean, the funniest thing was when, in the beginning of this process, someone, on my team was like, this is a very long shot, but this might happen. The election might be pushed back. Imagine, our election was supposed to be June 28th.
Right.
How many times is an election postponed? A federal election is postponed to August 23rd, 2 months. We just found out. I mean, it's really, I do blame. There are people that I think are to blame, and that is who's in power right now. And, right when we spoke last time, we had a chance to do this the right way, and they didn't. There were a lot of stakeholders that were very much involved and I think doing great work, and a lot of it was ignored. And just this district alone, New York 3, I think, it was extremely gerrymandered. Think about it. Do you know what I mean? It went from a +4 for Biden to a +14 for Biden. And you saw how crawling up, you know what I mean? The coastline, it didn't make any sense. How could the same person represent 5 counties fairly? It just, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't blow my mind that the maps were shot down. And I do blame people because there actually are sitting electeds right now, believe it or not, who had a hand in actually drawing out the districts that they were going to run for. It's really upsetting that like the use of power in this situation, I think is very upsetting. So many candidates who had to drop out, who spent so much time, raised money, spent people's money. See, that's something that I don't know if this goes over people's heads. Like, I'm very aware when I'm calling people and asking them to give me $20 or $50. It's not very easy right now for people to give money. It's a really tough time. People are struggling.
Right.
And, especially for some of these candidates who've raised all this money and now have to drop out because the lines are completely changed. They're out of the district, whatever it is. This is people's hard-earned money that is just being thrown around.
It's interesting, Reema, what you say, because I was always fascinated with, actually, Ray, I don't know if you knew this. I was also fascinated with primaries more than general, because for the people in their own party to decide, all right, this is our man or woman who we want to represent us. How do you run against someone with the same I don't want to say policies or ideals or anything like that, but do you want to distance yourself from some of them who might support something more, or you want to associate more with one that you agree with? Because it sounds like it's a lot of infighting, and you guys believe the same thing. Same thing on the other side. It's primary is primary, where there's a big primary going on right now in Pennsylvania for the Senate seat, and they're all attacking each other, but yet at the end of the day, their beliefs are pretty much the same. So how do you try to get ahead of someone you're running against?
Well, I honestly believe that it's all about representation. In my race particularly, I do think that every candidate does have their own lane. And does have their own kind of points that people can relate to or not relate to, and between, the three of us and everybody else on Facebook, I guess the fact of the matter is that when I look at the other candidates running, I don't feel represented. I personally don't feel represented. And, my situation is kind of a little, different, because I did run last year in Oyster Bay. The entire district I ran in is now part of this district, which for me is great, right? I got over 20,000 votes on the Democratic Party line, working family party line. I was on both. And I truly just think that, everyone has to engage their own people. And that's why I love the whole primary idea. Like, I don't think that me going out and kind of like, campaigning to a group that I think will relate to me can be bad for anybody else. Because at the end of the day, we're engaging everyone to hopefully vote in November for the Democratic candidate. But in my race, there are differences of opinion from candidate to candidate that are very stark. And so once people kind of look into it, I think that when they're looking at candidates, it is very issue related for my race, at least, because everybody, not everybody's on the same page at all. And there are some very stark differences of opinion. And so, I love that. I think that's amazing. Voters should be represented in every way, and voters should get to choose who they want to represent them.
Right.
Reema, I'm not trying to get you into trouble. You know, I'm a frequent critic of the Democratic Party, especially the local Democratic Party, of which I still am a member, I believe.
I
But
believe.
anyway, I believe. But my question to you is that Mike brings up the point about primaries, and it's an interesting year because there are so many candidates running on the Democratic side and party and on primaries. But my question to you is that do you think thus far in the campaign you've gotten a fair shake as far as has the party been neutral? Are they staying out of it? Do you feel as though they're exerting too much influence one way or the other? What are your thoughts on the party's involvement?
I really have to say, I know that in other districts, especially even on Long Island, there's been some controversy. In my particular district, I don't feel like the party is at all has their hand in it. That's the honest to goodness truth. Like, I don't feel at all like, here's the thing. It's that if it is happening, it's over my head.
Right.
It's totally over my head. And like, isn't that great that I don't feel it at all? But no,
Right.
especially because we do have, so many, the people who I'm running against are elected Democrats, or one is now a Democrat. He was conservative until December 1st. But I mean, so the party is definitely, I think, being neutral in my particular district. I know that that's not the case in other districts, at least.
Good. No, I'm happy to hear that. I mean, I'm like I said, I'm right on the water. If I wanted to go fishing, I'd go fishing that way. But I'm just happy. I'm happy to hear that because
Yeah,
it's not always the case. Reema, getting back to Mike and I, our differences sometimes lie on the national issues and so forth. But I think it's a fair question because people are struggling these days, especially economically and so forth. So, there's a general, and the party in power always takes some of the blame in the middle of cycles. So these are midterm elections and so forth. But, how would you? I guess my question is how would you, looking past the primary, thinking about a general election,
Mhm,
how would you convince people to vote Democratic, to vote for you in a
mhm.
general election when so much is going wrong
Yeah.
under the current administration and so forth? Apologize, an airplane going by.
Oh, no. Well, the thing with my campaign is that I truly feel that here, especially like on Long Island, and now our district is primarily a Nassau County, Long Island district again. And I
Right.
talk about this a lot. I think that, like, I talk to my neighbors, I talk to, my kids' friends' parents at school. I think if we just focus on the economy, the kids, like really just economic issues. I'm a small business owner. I think that the majority of jobs on Long Island are created by small businesses. I talk a lot about taxes that are like just hammered on small business owners. I really just want to focus on kitchen table issues, and I think that's what people want to focus on. I think I always say this, but I feel very just I'm exhausted. You know how people say, like, I'm part of the exhausted crew of Americans who I've been sitting around watching all this nonsense going on around me, and I'm just sick of it. I'm just so sick of I get it. I am the only minority candidate in my race, and I love that. I grew up here. I grew up in the Jericho School District. I was one of a very small handful of, kids who weren't white. My parents are, immigrated from South Asia. And in the same schools now, it's like, if not 50-50 demographically, it's actually a minority majority in Jericho and in Hicksville, both in this district. And I think representation is extremely important. Don't get me wrong. I meet so many young people all the time who are excited about this candidacy, who want to work for us because they're like, oh my God, this is so cool. Like you're from the same place that my family's from. And I never thought I'd see that here in Nassau County. But my campaign is not about identity politics at all. It's about what's happening in the kitchen when you're sitting down. What are you worried about? What are you thinking about before you go to bed at night? I honestly believe there's way more that brings us together than divides us. And I personally believe out of all the candidates in my race, I'm the one that can probably bring people together the most because I'm really not this like dogmatic Democrat. I'm really not. I just am a very exhausted and, quite frankly, worried mother who I just don't like where things are going. I think our priorities are upside down, and I'm afraid of the world that my children are going to live in.
Right.
And I think that we need to focus on the economy. We need to focus on Main Street. And I think if we just talk about that, people will relate. Everybody knows what's happening. We give these huge $1 billion tax breaks to these huge companies that don't need them. And, the guys running our mom and pops, our restaurants, our doctors, our lawyers, our accountants, our dentists are suffering under layers of employment taxes, unemployment tax, payroll tax. What we say in this country, in the tax code for the IRS, a small business is designated as any business of 500 and under employees.
Right.
Is a 500 employee business a small business? Is a 100 employee business a small business? I'm talking about like the 80% of businesses here on Long Island that have 5 employees and under. That needs to be a separate category, and we need to help them. We cannot be, murdering these guys under layers and layers and layers of taxes on the same money over and over and over again.
Yeah, Reema, I'm not sure if
Talk
that's.
about, I think it'll be great.
I don't know if that's solely like your position or other people agree with you, but I agree 100% with you, because being in a small business under 500 people, of course, there are a lot of things where we have to do as of December 31st. We have to offer the New York State 401k. There's a lot of things that we have to do that we don't have an HR department like
That's right.
bigger companies have. So more falls on the owner of the company, the person who runs the place, and there's so much more that goes into it, and it's all money. Wherever you turn, it's more money in this.
Money. I propose getting rid of the unemployment tax and the payroll tax for companies of 5 and under. I think it's ridiculous that, we do this to literally, we punish you for wanting to hire people. We're punishing you.
Right.
And then we're creating this atmosphere where these small business owners can't pay their employees the way they want to, because they're just drowning in ridiculous layers of taxes. And I talk about this a lot. And I think that Long Islanders can relate to this. I definitely do. And I think this is what we need to be talking about. How do we secure our futures? How do we secure our kids' futures? How do we sleep a little bit better at night with a little bit more money in our bank accounts? Because I think once that happens, everything else will also, kind of balance out. Let's talk about our taxes and let's talk about money. Another thing, school taxes on Long Island, insane. It's because we don't get enough money from the government, from the federal government. These are the real issues. These are the real issues, not the nonsense that, people want to clickbait. People want to, unfortunately, people want to just kind of get like 1,000 retweets on something ridiculous. But I think this is the real crux of how we get better, is if we make sure that everyone is financially secure.
Reema, let me just interrupt you for a moment. Maybe, Mike, let's just pause for a second. One thing that hasn't changed in the few months since Mike and I have done last on the show is I still struggle with comments and how to display them, Mike. So it's something we got to figure out. But Kevin Shaquille Mendez wrote hello. Well, he wrote Ray. He's running for Congress as well. Kevin, I think I might be in your district, so I think that may be something that I just learned tonight. So if so, you have my vote. But welcome home. I think he was in Columbia. Our friend Diane Madden says hello. Great friend.
Yeah, I don't see them, Ray. So if
this is on probably on mine. Seth Rosen, our friend Seth wrote, "So glad to see you guys back." Frank wrote, "2 sides to every story, 3 if you hear the truth." Okay. Seth wrote, "Ray pictures." You know what I look like, Seth? I don't know. Okay. Valerie wrote, "Can we all just agree that the Mets are looking phenomenal this season?" Mets are looking pretty good.
I just want to say this very slowly.
Okay. He was a Yankee fan. Seth wrote also, in New York, the primary is more often the deciding election. And he wrote, "I heard there were 2 primaries." Well, I believe what you're referring to, Seth, is the fact that the governor's race, I think, is decided in June, the primary.
The assembly.
Right. Okay. And but then there is a second one. Oh, I was joking, right? Okay. No problem, Seth. I'm just. Valerie also wrote, "Looking for specific solutions about the economy." Well, Reema, you did mention about the payroll tax. Anything else you'd like to add about the economy? Please jump in.
Well,
But
I'm also a proponent. I truly do believe that Medicare for all is a huge boost to our economy. Huge boost, especially to business owners. And even for big business, think about these big companies. We're competing with the rest of the world. Most of Europe, most European companies, they do not have to pay for healthcare for their employees, right? They all are on universal. This kind of takes away from our big companies who are spending something like $2 billion a year on employee healthcare. That most of the time, as I've said, is pretty subpar. I am a big proponent for Medicare for all. I do think it's just the right thing to do, but also I think that it would be a huge boon to the U.S. economy, for U.S. entrepreneurship, ingenuity. I think that it just is such a no-brainer. And then as I was talking about the payroll tax, the unemployment tax, I think we don't. This is like boring and not sexy. Like, this is not like what you want to make like a TikTok about, like payroll taxes. But I really do think that people will get it. Like, if you employ people, how hard it is to keep your head above water these days. And I think we need to really talk about a special category of what a small business is. Our mom and pop shops here on Long Island, what do we see? We see strip mall after strip mall after strip mall. These are the businesses. These are who are employing our neighbors. If they have a little bit more money, I know that they would pay their employees more. I know that. It's just the nature of how things are.
There's another comment, Reema, from Seth also, and I was going to ask about this. He asked, Ms. Rasool, I'm all for better health care, but Medicare for all is very expensive. So how can you convince people that think that it's very expensive?
It's not. What we're doing now is very expensive. What we're doing, and I always say this, what we have now, the quote unquote system, because we don't have a healthcare system in this country. We don't. That is very expensive. That's what's literally killing us. We have an obesity problem in this country. We have a mental health problem in this country. All of this is what's expensive. This is what's bringing everything down, is that our healthcare is all reactionary because none of us have insurance. That's good. Right. Basically is what it is.
But Reema, let me ask you. So expanding on Seth's comment, who pays for it? So the bottom line,
the same way, like as an employee, you're paying out of your paycheck every month for healthcare, right? Any company you're at. It's not like it's cheap. It's not cheap, right? It's the same money. You're paying for it through your taxes. But I mean, when you think about all of the money that you're saving on your medication, on like all these huge emergency bills that we get, this is not going to happen. Our country has the most medical debt in the world. In this country, in America, in the richest country in the world, we have people that lose their homes because they get sick. Right. That's unacceptable. Yeah, that's completely unacceptable.
I agree with you, but how do you convince someone, say, for example, who's part of a union, right? And they get great benefits and they don't pay as much as somebody that's paying out of pocket for less, coverage. So how do you convince them, let's go with Medicare for all because it'll save you money? Because them, it won't save money. Is that right?
Or well, not for everybody. Well, the thing is that I do think, like, if I am all for, why unions are so great is because they are the ones that then can negotiate and get better deals than the rest of us, right? I honestly believe that if you look at the numbers, I don't think it's a very big difference. I don't think that people will be upset that everyone has good health care. Do you know what I mean? Like, no, it's only the good health care is for me. And at the end of the day, I don't think that people are going to see that much of a change in their pockets because we're all paying for it one way or another. It's not a fact that all of a sudden, oh my God, now everything was so amazing. And now all of a sudden, I have to pay more taxes. Are we not paying taxes for everything? Everything? Do we even know where our tax money goes? It bothers me when I look around, like, we don't even know. Right. And now all of a sudden, like, I'm going to get upset about paying my taxes because everybody's going to have healthcare. We're all paying all these taxes anyway. God, where the hell is the money going?
Right. But even if it's
like these taxes, that this is what this did and this is what that did. I don't think it's going to make a difference.
Right. Even if it's like, say, $10 more a week or $100 or $1,000, whatever it is, it's so hard to convince everybody that's paying so much right now for gas, for milk at the supermarket because of gas, just to sell them on something that you may be paying a little bit more, but you're getting this. It's a hard sell to me. And that's why I don't understand, how to make it where it's affordable for everybody. That's right. And I tell Ray all the time, I like the idea of Medicare for all. I think it's a great idea, but who and how do we pay for it?
Oh no, absolutely. I get it. Here's my thing. It's just that I never understand when, it's like a war, or there's like some, like, not all of a sudden there are these billions and billions and billions of dollars. They're there.
Exactly.
No one's asking how do we pay for it. They're there. To send fund. I mean, I am one of those people. I really think that we need to look at all of this money that we send to all of these other countries. Do we even know how they're spending it? Some of these countries are so corrupt. That we deserve that money. A lot of the countries that we send that money to, they have universal health care.
No, you're right.
We are paying for their universal health care.
I've always had a problem with that where they say, okay, take Ukraine, for example, right?
Yeah.
So you hear in the news, okay, another 33 billion.
Another 40 billion, absolutely.
40 billion. But when I go to the store, nothing's ever exactly $10 or $20, but they say 40 billion. That should cover it, Where is the tally sheet? Where is everything? Where, what are they buying with it?
That's my problem. Like, honestly, like, I am not someone, like, I truly believe that, we have to help people. I'm not saying that, no, but I mean, there has to be some sort of, are we watching where the money's, is it just like a gift and then that's it? Or is there some accountability? Do we know how it's being spent? Is it just going into people's pockets? What's happening? I mean, no one is asking about where's that money coming from, but when we need money for ourselves, for our own citizens, all of a sudden everyone's like, where's the money coming from? It doesn't make sense to me.
So somebody had a great comment. They said last week when Elon Musk was going to buy Twitter for $40 billion, that could solve world hunger. But us giving Ukraine $40 billion is just like us scraping up change and giving them $40 billion. So it's all everything's twisted. It's exactly. It's spun however they want it to be spun to justify it. So,
and I'll say it again. I really truly blame the media. I truly blame Democratic messaging for being the worst messaging in the entire world. Because it's just bad. Like, no one gets it. The funniest thing ever, we were looking at Twitter, like, when the gas prices have been going up, but someone texted me and was just like, go on Twitter and put in Green New Deal. And I did it. And every single tweet was like, thanks, Green New Deal, for my high gas prices. It doesn't even make sense, but that's how bad the messaging is. That's why. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's that bad. Like, it's really bad. Even just the names, Medicare for All, what a bad name. Honestly, it's a bad name, because we all know what Medicare is. And so everyone's like, no, but Medicare doesn't have this, that. It's not even Medicare, what they're proposing, but they just put this stupid name on it so that it's super confusing to explain and for people to understand. It's like Democrats want to be condescending. Speak over, literally just speak over. That's why things are the way they are. But it's just really sad to me. And I think I see it myself. I'm in like these debates or whatever they're called, meet the candidates, and other people are talking. And I'm like, who are you talking to? Why are you speaking like that? Talk to people so they understand what you're talking. I don't understand what you're saying. And I consider myself kind of intelligent. A little bit,
Yeah, and another good. There's some more comments, right? For some reason, we have to work on getting them on here. But what has people so angry is that we're paying for gas that has already been paid for, which is true. And gas is priced on speculation, not real. And it always goes to what they speculate. So they're geniuses over there in the oil companies.
Well, they're making record profits. Quarter over quarter, they're making record profits. And then they're telling us it's inflation.
Right.
It doesn't make sense to me.
So interesting. I mean, this is really an interesting cycle, Reema. I guess my last question is, what would you grade, I guess a school letter grade, A to F, what would you grade the present administration, the Biden administration?
Oh my God. I will give them a solid C.
I see. Okay.
Fair enough. You know why? Only because, I think that there's so much more that he can be doing with executive orders that he's not doing. And I'm not blaming him. I get it. But just when you go around and you talk to people, people do not feel confident in this government's handling of the economy. And that's when and at the end of the day, as we were talking about not even 10 minutes ago, I think that's everything. You know what I mean? When people I always say this, but like as a mom, I stay up at night and everything is going through my head before I go to bed, oh my gosh. And then I'm like, are my kids, of course, are my kids going to be okay? Is Noah going to get into college? It's like there's always something in your head. And if you at least have some money in your bank account, and you know what I mean? You can pay your mortgage this month, and you're going to be able to at least do the basic things and be comfortable with that. A lot of these other issues kind of, you know what I mean? A lot of the mental health stress that we're having in this country is because of the, economy. People are struggling. So, I just think that unfortunately he's not making people feel confident. And I think that's a big part in leadership. Regardless of what you're actually doing, people need to feel like you are, what you're doing and feel happy. But I talk to people every day. I talk to voters every day. And between us and everyone, they're not happy. They don't feel confident. They don't feel confident in the economy.
Well, Mike, you see, one of the reasons why I like Reema so much is because I feel as though I didn't know that I was going to ask the question, and she certainly didn't know I was going to ask the question, and I didn't know what her response was going to be. And I think a lot of people get, pigeonholed into being strictly a Republican or strictly a Democrat and following in line, and the most boring people ever, because they're going to defend the indefensible. Reema most certainly is not that type of person. So I appreciate your answer, Reema, because I sort of feel exactly the same way you do about the administration. So thank you for that candid answer.
Ray, let me ask you, what would you grade the current administration? So you're okay, and you grade them as you're not a candidate and grade them as you are a candidate. Is it the same or does it change? You know what I mean?
You're asking me?
I'm asking you, Ray.
Oh, me?
You, Ray, as someone not running,
no. I mean, I think Reema's grade of C is actually pretty close. I mean, I might be slightly lower than that, but I wouldn't give him an F. If that's what we're thinking about, I wouldn't give him an F. I think that he's strongest in regard to just engaging America with the relationships that may have been lost over the previous administration. It's great to say America first. I say America first, but in reality, I think that there was a lot of damage that was done on the international stage by our allies not really knowing where we stood on things. And I do think that there was a certain novelty to President Trump's approach to things. And I'm not saying that he was wrong about every single thing that he did. I've often agreed with him on certain things, but I think Biden putting it back is in the long-term interest of America. Even though it doesn't sound great, but these alliances do matter. I don't understand what more he could have done with respect to Ukraine initially. Although I do think that throwing money now is sort of like a Band-Aid approach, and I'm not sure where he's going with what he's trying to do with Ukraine. But I thought his initial handling of Ukraine was appropriate. On the economic front, I agree wholeheartedly with Reema. So in sum, I would probably grade him. C is probably a little optimistic, maybe a C minus, a D plus, something like that. But I'm one of those people who just believes. David Gergen said something on CNN the other night where he really hoped that neither the former president or the current president are on the ballot in 2024. And I couldn't tell you how much I agree with that. I think I screenshot it or took a picture on my phone or something, because I really believe that. I think that, there's nothing wrong with being, 77, 78, 80, whatever it is that these people are. There's nothing wrong with that. I look at some of those people and they have such vitality and so forth. But the reality of it is that I just think that it's time to turn the page, and I think that there are exciting voices in this country. We just have to be open to them. And I certainly hope that 2024 is the first step. So my short answer is maybe a C minus, maybe a D plus, something in that range.
Actually, I did see that interview, Ray, with David Gergen. Now, David Gergen goes back to Reagan, Carter, Clinton. So he's been, every party he's been there. He's a very bright guy. And I agree with him. The only tough sell is that, for the people that like Trump, and you know how I felt about Trump. I did like a lot of his policies. I thought, the Twitter, the mean tweets, all that stuff wasn't needed. But the economy, paying $1.89 for gas. I know COVID hit, it was the worst timing for everything. but it's going to. I think it's just going to be tough for Democrats this midterm. I don't see. I think as a Democrat running for anything, you have to say, Biden gets a D or an F even on a lot of things. I know you don't go that way, but the further you move yourself away from them, I think the better shot you have. That's just my opinion. I don't know, but
well, we get an interesting. We're talking today on a Tuesday in May, and it's interesting because it's just now being to summertime. You just get a little hint of it, but today's the first test, really, because you've got these important elections throughout the country. You've got school board elections, and everyone's tuning in. Nobody really cared about school board. I mean, up until COVID, and now, and everything is about. People are become active, which is a good thing. I mean, it's not a bad thing for people to be active. Some of the campaigns have been silly, especially down here. I could tell you firsthand. But the fear and the whatever the word is, the propaganda has just been outrageous. But I like some of the candidates' kids better than I like the candidates. The kids are all right. The parents just suck. But but the thing is that it is a election day for school boards. It's an election day in Pennsylvania. We'll see what happens there. So it's an early test to see what's going on, and we'll see what happens also in June with the governor's race and see what that means. But yeah, it's a tough environment. I'm sure, Reema, you would agree. I mean, generally for Democrats, it's a tough environment.
Absolutely, and I think especially on Long Island, where we're very purple. Long Island is a very, when I went to NYU, and people from outside of New York don't really understand. Yeah, we're 20 miles, not even out of Manhattan, but it's like a different world. This is a completely different world, and not everyone understands the very special ecosystem that we have here on Long Island. And so I personally think that they did a great thing with the map, because at the end of the day, I'm not this like, oh my God, as I said, I'm not this like extreme one way or the other. I'm just exhausted. And I think I am just part of the exhausted majority. I think most Americans are exhausted and just sick of it, sick of all this nonsense, the political nonsense. But, the fact of the matter is that people are not happy with the current government. And if you're running as a Democrat, think about it. None of the elected Congress people on Long Island are running for re-election. What do they know? Right. And they're Democrats, right?
With redistricting and the whole map changing, how are you doing polling wise? And can you trust polling numbers? No. Since you can't, right? There's no way, because it's not a tried and tested. It's not an area. There's no polling.
Not just that. I mean, the polling was completely off last year for the election last year in November. The polling was completely off. What we have is an election system that's like a symbiotic economic system, and you have to hire the pollers. You have to pay that. It's all it's business. It's business. You have to do it. But I don't trust any poll that I see, because they're all skewed. Who are you calling? Right? Like,
exactly.
I don't trust any of these polls. It's all just, I hate to say it, but election money making. It's like a big, mutual admiration society, I like to call it.
Right.
Let me just share a comment from Jared, who wrote something. I think thank you, Jared. He wrote something. I think he cut and pasted from the Board of Elections. The Supreme Court has ordered congressional and state Senate elections to be held on Tuesday, August 23rd. The court is working to develop a new political calendar to reflect this primary date. We do not foresee the June 28th primary changing for our statewide. Okay, so I think what he's just reiterating is that there will be two primaries, which, right. Okay, thank you for that, Jared. Valerie asked a question. What specific, I'm sorry, we might make you jump back and forth, but I'm slow on these comments. What executive orders would you like to see the president execute? You mentioned that earlier about executive orders.
Mm-hmm. Well, he did. I know that there's a lot of talk about student debt, right? And at the end of the day, he did promise the Democratic base that he was going to take care of a portion of student debt. And that, I think a lot of politicians talk about it, and they're getting the electorate, the people that really voted for them for this particular. There is a huge group of Americans that are cancel student debt voters. That is what they voted on. That was their whole thing. I personally really do believe that like predatory loans for students are so wrong. And at the very least, they should be interest free. You know, like I've talked to so many people who have repaid the amount that they've borrowed and still owe like the same amount again. I don't think that government loans for students should have interest. And there has to be something that can be done about that. I don't think we can do anything about private student loans, but federal government loans shouldn't be predatory. Shouldn't students who want to learn and go to school, they shouldn't be paying interest on federal loans. And I feel like that's something that he can just do right away. That would just, I think, make such a big difference. And really, I think it's just the fair thing to do. And there's so many voters who are waiting literally every day. Right now, there's a moratorium on student loan payments. And everyone is watching and waiting that what is he going to do? But I think that he has to do something sooner or later. Every day in the news, we do hear something, but at the very least, they should be interest free. And that should just be a thing. Federal student loans for Americans to go to school should not be predatory and have insane interest. I think that doesn't make any sense.
I agree with you with Reema, but is that enough for them though? Because they want all of the debt wiped out,
I honestly don't know all of the specifics of how that works. Like I don't know if that's, but I do think that there is something that can be done. It has to be looked at.
Right.
It has to be looked at.
At least try something.
Try something. That's what, even if we just have if we can't do the total student debt, there has to be something that can be done to help these people who literally their lives are being held back because of these huge interest payments that they're making. I think for anyone that's paid their debt of the amount that they've borrowed and they only owe interest, I think all of the interest should be canceled. I do.
Well, Reema, we thank you so much for joining us. And people ought to know our style when it comes to the show is that Mike does a great job with all the prep work and all the technical stuff, and I do very little, almost nothing. And so we don't do a lot of prep work. And the one thing we don't do is we don't do any kind of like pre-interviews with our guests. So Reema had no idea what we were going to ask. And so I appreciate that, these interviews are always done without any conditions or preconditions, and never know exactly which direction we're going to go. And it's just fun to have somebody on who's just so, free, what's the word? Free, whatever, free, able to just go off and just talk about anything that we want to talk about. Yeah. Freewheeling was the word I was looking for. So thank you very much, Reema, for joining us, and hope to have you on. I'm sure we will before the primary election in August, and let's see what happens tonight with the school board elections.
Thank you guys. Have a wonderful evening. Take care. Enjoy this beautiful weather.
Yep.
Thanks, Reema. Take care. And if once you win your primary, I'm voting for you in the general.
Woo! That's like a huge one for me. You have no idea, right? That's like my favorite. My favorite.
Assuming they don't change the districts between now and then.
Exactly. Take care, Reema.
Take care, guys.
Good night.
Oh yeah. Reema's interesting, right? Reema's interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I like her style because she, like I said, we could just kind of ask her anything we want to ask her and she'll answer it. And she doesn't give you the cookie cutter partisan nonsense, No. So
and she stands by what she says, which is good. I'm having a little microphone problems here where it's falling down on me, but I'm just trying.
See, I like the fact that when you look at the reality of the situation. By the way, I have to read a comment from our friend Arthur in a second, but no, I just like the fact that you can be a Democrat and you can be critical of other Democrats. I think that's the way it should be. If you're a Republican, you should be as critical or more critical of people in your own party because you hold them to a higher standard because it's so important to achieve the things that that you believe in. I think that's, if I do run at some point, I would always stress competency over. It's not really what you believe. It's what you're able to achieve and how able you are to do the job. And then it's what you believe. It's almost like the intersection between the two are what's important. We get hung up on, hey, what do you believe? What do you believe? But if you're an elected official, it's also about how much can you get done, right. And how can you achieve the things that it is that you believe in, not just what you believe in, So I don't know, just ranting on that, but it's nice. It's nice to have her on the show,
Definitely.
So what are your thoughts on the country where we are right now, Mike? I know we've been texting about gas prices and so forth.
Yeah, there's a few. There's the whole. It all seems like a domino effect, right? And gas seems always to be, whatever's talking about. This was just a few days ago where the New York average was $4.68. I think it's higher today. You saw something. I don't think I have the picture that you sent, but there was one. Would you see $5.69 today?
Yeah. So what I did, I was in Queens for a few minutes, and I was actually on like just a hair above empty, and yeah, for me it was a little bit higher. For me it was 59. Was it 580?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
yeah,
This is somewhere else.
no, this
Yeah.
is 589, and I think no, that was 589. No, I don't know what that is.
I
Where
don't know
this
what that
is?
is. The other one was the one I think I
Yeah,
saw,
no,
but
that was New
but
York
uh
Times. Yeah, I don't know.
yeah, I was at this is I think Mark had that one on. I was at 499. That it struck me because it was $5,
Right,
and it's a psychological thing, but I think the problem is that if people try to explain away this with some logical explanation about how the president doesn't control the price of fuel, that is actually very very true to some extent, meaning that the daily fluctuation in gas prices, it's not like he's sitting in the White House and can flip a switch, but prolonged pricing, there's a big difference. And I personally hold the administration responsible for where we are in fuel pricing. I mean, I don't know what can be done. But then again, I'm not the president of the United States, and the smartest answer I heard from somebody running for office recently had to do with something with Ukraine. And it was at this forum, and they asked her, what would you do? And she said, How do I know? I'm not the president. I'm running for this seat, but I don't have the information yet. I would hope that I would form a better opinion once I have the job. I don't know what the president can do about gas prices, but I know that he has to be able to do something, and it has to be a priority. And it
right,
may be things that you don't want to do. You might have to buy oil from Venezuela. You might have to push your allies in the Middle East to produce more. I mean, people have been talking about it. I'm not exactly the first person, but why do you have a relationship with Saudi Arabia? One of the worst countries in the world when it comes to human right abuse. I mean, the only reason why you do is because of oil. Let's be honest about it.
of course.
I mean, you overlook all their nonsense, and because they produce oil, and you're in a situation where you need them to ramp up production, and they refuse to do so. I mean, who needs friends like that? And I do believe that energy independence is a matter of national defense. And I've got a lot of friends, smart friends, who explain the price of oil, and it's dependent upon the companies, and the companies are greedy and this and that. Well, we know all that. If you're the president of the United States, you've got to bring in these companies and have a press conference and put them on the spot and use your soapbox, if you will, to really humiliate these people if that's what you need to do.
Right,
Or you need to put in policies that are gonna, but you can't convince people that this is not a problem. Every time I fill up my freaking car and I see what I'm spending, I curse. And I'm
yeah,
a Democrat,
yeah,
I mean, I think I am. So you know, it's just people will get very whatever the word is, they get very um, chatty about gas prices, and they want to explain it away. And I've got a lot of friends who've got electric cars, and they're smart people, and they bought cars at the right price at the right time. And God bless them, they don't have to worry about gas. Yeah, I wasn't one of those people, and now I want an electric car, but so do you, and so does everybody else, and that's
yeah,
why you can't find them.
yeah.
The time to get an electric car was when gas was 250, and you could actually go out and buy an electric car at a decent price. You're not going to buy an electric car now when gas is $6, and every car manufacturer and every dealership in this country knows that
Right.
everyone's coming to buy an electric car. I mean, come on, that's the stupidest time to buy an electric car.
Yeah.
So it's a tough situation. Inflation is real, and I got it wrong. I mean, I remember having a debate a year ago with somebody on Facebook about how inflation really isn't a thing anymore because we've got so much competition and so forth and blah 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 blah. And here we are a year later, and inflation's pegged at like 8.3, 8.5%, something like that. And no, it's a real problem.
Right. And you said it before about being a defense problem that you see with oil. I think Frank had a comment saying that they could enact the defense, some kind of act. I don't see the.
Yeah, he did. You can yes, he did. There was a good comment,
Yeah,
but
so that's sort of like, during World War II, we told all these places, okay, now you have to start making tanks or bullets or whatever you have to do. So why can't we temporarily reinstate it? Or like I said, the president has to be able to do something, and that's why. And we'll get into the president because I did want to, we were going to have our little battle or whatever it was, because I have to blame Biden for everything, because the buck has to stop somewhere, and he's got to be able to do something, at least more than what we can do. You know, it's just
Frank, yeah, I'm sorry, Mike, to interrupt you. Frank, I'm terrible with these comments, guys. I apologize. Ray, why is the traffic bumper to bumper? When we slow down buying gas, the prices will go down. Yeah, look, I mean, you would think that there's certain things that can go on. Our friend Nick is watching as well, but hi, Nick. Actually, we should talk to him about electric cars because he knows that industry very well. But anyway, um, Arthur also wrote that the biggest problem. This is in regard to something Reema had said. Our friend Arthur wrote that the biggest problem we have is that the small numbers who actually come out and vote, special interests rule the day. Yes, sorry, Arthur, for not reading that earlier.
sure.
Um, yeah, I mean, look, you do have to blame the president for a lot of what's going on. I blame him for a lack of direction. But when it comes to energy independence, I mean, you know, you can see the boats going by, and everyone cares about the environment. And when you're on the water over here, you see a lot of stuff floating around. And plastic. There are a lot of people on this island who've done some good things with plastic and eliminating plastic bags and so forth. But you still have a huge problem. You go to 7-Eleven and everyone's buying bottled water in plastic containers. I
Yeah,
mean, where does that plastic end up? They're ranting about gas, and they're drinking bottled water when you know that the plastic's going to end up in the oceans.
right.
We all have to look in the mirror when it comes to the environment. It's not just climate change, but it's also pollution. It's also, you know, what we think we recycle, we actually don't. I mean, it's a very, very small amount of things that actually get recycled. There are stories about this on 60 Minutes. I've watched any number of times. You know, Everything we produce leaves a footprint. There's no such thing as free lunch. Even electric cars, they're great. They're better than gas, but let's not pretend that they don't use rare earth metals in their batteries. And how do you get rare earth metals? You're mining. How do you mine? I mean, everything goes back to the fact that if you live on Earth, you're going to leave a footprint on Earth. And how do we not leave as big of a footprint, or how do we leave Earth in a way that we can leave it to our children and so forth? Of course, those are the struggles. But no, I think energy independence is a matter of national defense, because if not, what are we going to do? I mean, what's the magic number? Are we going to hit $7 in gas by July 4th? July 4th is traditionally the peak of the driving season. What are we looking at right now? I was joking around with the gas guy today at the gas station, and I mean, I'm telling you, you can't even joke around with them because they're so defensive. They've been just beaten up by it, literally. I'm joking around. I'm like, oh, it's price of gas. He goes, hey, don't blame me. Don't blame me. I go,
Right.
dude, I'm not going to blame you. You just work here. But, they're just so used to it. What happens when gas hits $6.57 a gallon? What
Yeah.
are we going to do?
Yeah.
And
I'm guessing
you,
it's going to top off at 629. That's my on May 17th. I'm guessing May 629 by the 4th of July.
listen, it's a great advertisement for Zoom. It's a great advertisement for working remotely, because we all know that during the pandemic, gas was a fraction of what it is today. And you think, all right, I think that might have been what Frank was trying to convey. If you work from home and you don't go in every day, you don't have to spend that money. And do you really have to go in every day? These are all interesting philosophical questions, but the
Right.
reality of it is that our economy was built on a certain model, and that model was people going to work. Now, if you're going to change that model, you're going to have a domino effect. You're not going to have the people spending money in restaurants and so forth. Who knows how it ends up? All I know is that I want gas to be 250 about, and I sound like a whatever, like an arrogant person, but an arrogant, spoiled person. But maybe that's what I am. I don't know. But I want gas to be 250 a gallon.
Yeah. And that's where it belongs. Frank makes a great point too, Ray. He said, Mike, if he does executive order, the other side will go to court for an injunction. The oil companies have Congress in their pocket. The stock price and their dividends mean everything to their holders. It's all about making profits for the stock.
And you if you're the I blame the president, Frank, and Mike, because if that's what it is, man, well, think about all the power you have. You're the most powerful man in the world. And I have no idea what it's like to be in that position. But I just imagine you go to the press every single day and you just hammer them if that's what this is. But I think it's a mix of things. I think it's corporate greed. Listen, we all know that gas prices go up much faster than they go down. I mean, and companies use that as a little kind of way of making a few extra bucks. I used to laugh because FedEx, had the fuel surcharge. They put that on when gas was spiking a few years ago, and then gas obviously dropped during the pandemic, and they still had it on. The fuel surcharge.
Yep.
It's the price of gas always goes up faster than it goes down, and that's not right. But at the same token, that there are legitimate reasons why you can see gas having gone up. If you're not importing oil from Russia anymore, you've taken them off the grid. That's going to have a major impact on supply. You don't want to really do the deal with the Iranians for obvious reasons. Well, I go back to, what the hell do you have Saudi Arabia for? And I hate to sound like an Arab, whatever, but what's wrong with American natural gas? And people say, well, natural gas is not oil. It's not oil, but if you increase natural gas, you reduce the supply, you reduce the demand for oil. And there's nobody that I know, nobody that heats their house with electric. So every time I hear everyone crying about fossil fuels, I agree with you. Okay. I mean, I agree with you. But what I'm saying is that, what do you do in the wintertime? You're not heating your house with electric. Nobody heats their house with electric. If you heat your house with electric, it's only because you have no other choice and you hate doing it because it's expensive and it's not exactly, it's slow. It's just an inefficient way of heating a house. If you want to heat your house, you're using either gas or oil, period, full stop. That's what I know. If I'm wrong, prove me wrong. So we are guilty of, we're all guilty of it, and we all have to kind of get better with it. And we want to make things better for our children when it comes to the environment, but let's not do it at the cost of our energy independence. We need to be energy independent.
Yep. Yep.
I don't know. Is
Yeah.
that the Democratic position, the Republican position? I don't know what position that is.
Yeah, no, it's a common sense position, actually. We're in a jam right now. We have to get out of there before we can do anything. So yeah, so that's that. There's a couple other things, Ray. I want to talk about. We're at the hour already. I don't know how much longer you want to
go. Let's go.
But I wanted to talk about a little. We talked about it before. I believe in the Second Amendment.
Yeah.
I'm starting to not starting for a long time. That terrible shooting up in Buffalo that they had,
Right.
up in that top supermarket,
Right.
where they're calling it a hate crime, and these poor 10 people lost their lives.
It's actually the first time I saw their photo was just the one
Yeah.
we just showed it.
Yeah.
I've been a little bit out of it for the last.
It was something so. I don't know, and I'm not blaming. Of course you blame the shooter. I don't know actually who to blame, but these guns, they're the AR-15s with these 30-round magazines. I don't think there's a need for them in for people to have these. I don't. It's a tough one for me, right? I don't know, because I know a lot of gun people are going to be like, who are you to tell me what I can and can't have? But look at the damage that this guy did. And I told you earlier, I actually did see the video that I wish I can unsee, but
Yeah.
it was very disturbing. And the speed that he killed these people, some of them were dead before they hit the ground, and it's. I don't know. I don't know where I stand with that. I guess that's me saying I don't really know.
Well, I'll tell you what, Mike. The governor, maybe as usual, took the easy way out. Because
Yeah.
the governor chose to blast the platform, and we were talking earlier today. I don't even know what the hell the platform is called. What was it called? It's some gaming platform, right? Social media.
Twitch.
Yeah. So, she's saying that, the social media are the people to blame because they spread this and because they allowed for this kid to broadcast the video, and that's what he was all about, and blame them. No, I want to know, why don't we blame the parents? Why don't we blame the teachers? Why don't we blame the guy? I'm sorry to say this. I know it's election night for the schools, and I'm sorry to say it this way, but it's the first thought that came to my mind. How is it that a 18-year-old, I'm going to call him a kid, but legally he's an adult, he's a man, right? Technically. So
Yeah.
an 18-year-old deranged kid, how could he have gotten this far without the warning signs? Now, I do think that there was something out there where they did like analyze him and they decided that he was safe enough to go back, but this is the problem. And I think everybody has to look in the mirror. And I'm curious. I would love to know, what did his school teachers see? What did his guy? I mean, it's a failure of society that this person did what he did, and of course he's evil. He deserves capital punishment. I'm sorry. I don't know if he's eligible for it on the federal level. I think he might be. He's pure evil. But of course, I believe the gun has to come out of people's hands, like people like this, because you don't see too many machete attacks like this. You see some idiot kid taking a gun. And by the way, what was interesting about this case, I'm rambling a little bit, was that you had a retired police officer acting as
Yeah.
a security guard, and unfortunately, I believe he lost his life.
Yeah.
So this idea, and we talk about the schools, and we said, all right, well, the way we keep our schools safe is to have armed guards. Okay, as if that's the end all be all. What makes you think that an armed guard, even if he was a trained ex-military, ex-police officer, is automatically going to be able to kill somebody who has a gun? There's
Yeah.
no rules or rhyme to this whole
And
thing.
there are reports, Ray, that he did the retired policeman who was working security did fire 2 shots that hit him in his bulletproof vest. So he
Yeah.
did
So
get
now,
shots,
right,
So
right.
that's why people on my side that are going to say, well, I think Trump always said it. If the bullets are flying the other way, they're going to think twice. But nobody. If someone had their gun out and ready, they didn't have a chance against this guy. That's how
Listen,
fast it happened.
I'm saying this respectfully, Mike, and I know we disagree about not the Second Amendment, but we disagree about guns generally. But let me
Right.
just say this, you know, and I'm saying it again, I apologize, you guys, but I'm not really meaning it you, but I'm
Right.
just
I know.
saying your side. No one's talking about bail reform. Because God knows if this had anything to do with that, this would be the biggest story ever. It's all of a sudden, I'm not saying it didn't get attention. I'm just saying it's a quieter story than you would think. It's a quieter story because, this is an 18-year-old guy from upstate New York who basically, checked all the boxes. There was no reason for him not to legally obtain a gun, right? I think you can get a gun at the age of 18.
Yeah.
So, here we are. And there's no test. I mean, there's literally nothing that would stop this guy from getting a gun. And just imagine. That's how I think of it, as just imagine if it was a loved one. How could you imagine losing somebody at a supermarket? It's not better if you're at a concert or a movie theater, of course, but I'm
Right.
just saying, we all go to the supermarket. I'm at the supermarket 5 times a week, something like that. Imagine.
Right.
So listen, guns get me fired up, for lack of pardon the pun, but it really does, because it makes me upset. And I plead guilty. I'm somebody who, I never understood the appeal of them. I like pens. I joke around with friends. I like pens. I like fancy pens. And I lose them sometimes, but I like them, and I play around with them, and I study them. But then what am I going to do with them? I'm going to write. It's a pen.
Right.
You're supposed to write. I don't understand. If you're a gun collector, what are you doing with guns? You're going to play around with it. You're going to clean it. You're going to brush it. You're going to do it. And then all of a sudden you're going to try to find an excuse to fire it.
Yeah.
And, I'm not saying everybody who has a gun goes out and kills people, but I do think that, I just don't have a thing for guns, honestly.
Yeah.
So they don't excite me. They actually scare me on some level. I understand people have different opinions about it, but here we are. And by the way, from Saturday, when was this? This happened on Saturday, I think. Was it Saturday?
Saturday, yes.
From then till now, if you check your apps or whatever it is, you get news. I don't know. There's been like a mass shooting every single day since.
Yeah. There was one.
4 people here, 5 people there, 3 people there.
Yep.
And I have my Apple News thing set up where it gives me like gun shootings and stuff like that. So I see it and I'm like, well, this one really didn't make the news. This one I didn't hear about. This one, whatever. And it's 5, 4, 3, another 5. No big deal.
That's the thing, though, right? So I know you like sports and you like stats and everything like that. So, but if you talk about, what happens in Chicago, where 20, 30 people are killed every weekend, and I'm not trying to justify it in any way. Any one killing's enough. It's too much. So, where do you draw the line and say, okay, 10 people, it's less than 30 people. It's still way too much. And this kid, I don't know. Like I said, I'm changing my mind a lot of bit, I should say, with this. And Eva commented, I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah.
She wrote, I wrote about this at some point. As a veteran, we go through a rigorous screening before we ever get handed a weapon. M16 in her case. Why don't we have the same standards for civilians that we have for our own military? So a civilian can't get an M16. That's a fully automated AR-15, or I think this guy used it. It was a Bushmaster. I think it was an AX-15, or I'm not sure exactly.
But the thing I don't understand though is this: when we talk about mental health, when we talk about taking a test, and hi Eva, by the way. But my question is that you take a test today. It's like a driving test. You go out, you take a vision test to go drive, and then you don't take it again until whatever, maybe the rest of your life. But you're 80 years old. Are you the same person you were when you were 30? Is your vision the same? I mean, mental health. You're mentally healthy today. Who knows in 5 years? it's not just taking that initial test. Are we going to require people to take a test every single year? Or should be every 6 months? Should it be every 3 years? I mean, what's the magic number to make sure that a person who owns a gun is mentally fit to have a gun?
Yeah.
And so many of these cases, you know, you see people who on paper made sense. They're ex-military, ex-police, and of course that you want them to have guns. You want them to keep our neighborhood safe. Well, it turns out they were suffering from something, PTSD or something, and it turns out they weren't mentally fit. And then they go out and do something terrible to themselves or to other people. I just can't figure it out. The only thing I know, Mike, my very simple-minded brain tells me that the common link is that they used a weapon. So, to me, it's like you take the weapon out of the hand and then you figure the rest of it out after. That's how I feel. But I
Right.
am biased, and I'm telling you, I'm trying in the spirit of working our relationship out. I'm trying to understand my own biases and my own, faults in my thinking or my own whatever. And I don't like guns. I just never have, and my kid brother loves them, and for him it means something different, military, this, that. So he just, he feels as though he can. I mean, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but from what he's told me, he feels as though he can attribute his life to having had a gun at various points in his career. Like this saved my life because I had this with me. Not that he had these huge firefights, but just the fact that he had it. I don't know what he meant, but whatever. That's what he's told me. So I don't have that. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I also haven't served my country, so maybe that's part of the problem. But
Yeah.
the reality of it is that I just don't get it.
And the thing is, where Eva wrote again, where all military recruits have to pass a psychological and physical screening before we make it to basic training, yet we allow any civilian to own a weapon with no screenings. That is true, and it's not true. For rifles and things like that, you have to, they do, here in New York, they run a background check. It's not a very, it's a pretty thorough background check compared to other states. For handguns and pistol permits, you're run through the FBI and local police. So they do check for, criminal background. They don't check for mental screening.
Let me ask you this question, Mike. This is something I got into it with somebody that we both know on Facebook about this. Didn't get into it, but we had a little bit of a debate.
Right.
Let's say for argument's sake, everybody had a gun. I was allowed to have a gun. Obviously, the Second Amendment exists, whatever. They have a gun. You're still going to have businesses that have their own policies. I don't know. I mean, I walk around New York. I travel a bit, other states, and I don't see like people walking around with guns. Now, I don't go to Texas. I haven't been to Texas in a long time. I haven't been to a lot of states that are much more gun friendly. But to be fair, but I'm saying you don't see a lot of people walking around with guns. Maybe they have it, if they have a concealed permit or whatever. Maybe they have it under their jacket or something like that. What I'm saying is that businesses feel uncomfortable with having people walking around with guns. And one of the guys I got into this with, he has a construction company. Said, "Would you let your guys come to work with a gun? You're pro gun. Would you let your guys come to work with a gun?" I don't know. Maybe not. Okay, so why is it that you feel as though you don't want people coming to work with a gun? I don't know. Accidents can happen. Okay, so if accidents can happen at your workplace, what makes you think they can't happen anywhere else?
Right.
Or, you got a situation where two guys, and again, I'm not stereotyping. Well, maybe I'm stereotyping. Two construction guys. It's hot out. They're bickering. Do you want them both to have a gun, or do you think that maybe it could get out of hand very quickly?
Yeah.
I
That's a
mean,
good
so
point. That's a good
we
point.
we 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 fight about this, but when it comes down to business, there's a lot of like stuff that goes on. And then we talk about business also. Why not make it required that people have to have insurance to have a gun? Now, it's not in the Constitution. I understand that, but what I'm saying is that if you require people to have insurance, you're going to put the onus on the insurance companies to really do their due diligence, which I hate that word, but due diligence on people, maybe more so than the government, and we fight about it because it's a thing to fight about. But in reality, I'm telling you, Mike, I go out a lot, and I never see at restaurants, I never see anybody put their gun on a table and like, here's my gun. You just don't see it. People don't carry guns, in my opinion. Maybe I'm living a sheltered life. I don't know. But people don't carry guns in places of business because they know they're not welcome and they don't want to do it themselves. So we fight about this. If you want to have a gun at your house and you want to lock it up and you want to keep it safe and you want to do all the safeguards, I guess you have that right, I guess that's what the Constitution says. I'm not in love with it, but I guess that's what it says. I understand that it's not going to change. But short of that, is it normal to think that, not normal, but is it fair to think that we should have restrictions, common sense restrictions? I mean, look what happens every single day in this country.
Yep. Yep. And you brought up something before too with the death penalty. Pretty much, I really believe that the death penalty is a deterrent. I'm going to bring this up. I put this up, Ray. So this was 10 reasons to abolish the death penalty. This was up. I forget when whose organization posted this, but I copied it from there. So it says no state should have the power to take a person's life. Okay, it's irrevocable. It does not keep society safe. It is unfair. Not all murder victims' families want the death penalty. So, and it goes down and on and on. It's inhumane and all that kind of stuff. It's inhuman, cruel, degrading, and all that. So now my question, and I wanted to bring this up because we didn't talk about this at all, but I wanted to talk about that whole Roe versus Wade and the Supreme Court with the because a lot of those things sort of could be pertain to a baby. With the Roe versus Wade, I really don't have an opinion. I don't know much about it. I know that they want to throw it back to the states. New York State, I'm sure, is still going to be okay to have abortions. The blue states will be fine. Red states, I take it that they could charge you criminally. I don't know enough about it to talk about it, but when I was reading that, I was like, that could be 10 reasons why not to have an abortion. So I don't know. The whole thing, this whole news cycle the last couple of weeks, right, has made me a little crazy.
Well, because you bring it up, I have to say something. The thing about Roe versus Wade is that, you have to read parenthetically what that there are people I know, lawyers, so forth, who Democrats, liberal, whatever you want to call them, who actually think that decision Roe v. Wade was poorly decided from a legal standpoint, from purely a legal standpoint.
Yes.
But the truth of the matter is that we know that let's cut the bullshit. We know what this is about. It's the same thing with guns. I mean, if you tell me, Ray, what you really are after is you're really after people not having guns. If I'm being honest with you, Mike, I'm going to say yes. Okay. I'm going to tell you honestly, I don't think people should have guns. Okay. Let me own my belief. Okay. I really think that guns are a waste of time. They don't interest me. I find them useless, and therefore I think that people shouldn't have guns. But I'll say the right thing, and I'll say that I understand the Second Amendment, blah 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 blah. And I do understand that is part of the Constitution, it's part of law, whatever. But when we talk about Roe versus Wade, the decision itself may have been flawed from a legal standpoint. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. You're not a lawyer. But
No.
the truth
Well,
of the
actually,
matter is
Ruth Bader Ginsburg said that. Those were like
yeah,
almost
okay.
exact words.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember reading that. And there are other people who felt that also from a legal standpoint, whatever the logic that was used was flawed from the beginning. Okay. However, we also know, I watched on Meet the Press a couple weeks ago, the governor of Mississippi, and he had the Southern charm and yes, sir, yes, ma'am, blah, 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 bullshit, whatever. But the point of it is that they asked him point blank, in your state, there's no exception made for incest.
Right.
And his first answer was, well, I wasn't in the legislature or in government when that was decided in 2009. So, okay, well, now you're the governor of the state. What's your opinion?
Right.
His answer was, we should have a conversation. I mean, what sick, fucked up world do we live in where there are anybody in this world who thinks that incest? I mean, it's, we talk about bringing the country together and unity and stuff like that. Everyone has a dividing line, like, and say, okay, I can't get past this. I personally can't get past the fact that anyone would think that incest, a child produced from incest, a woman should have that burden for the rest of her life. I mean, that's just crazy, and you could be right to life. You could be, very religious, very Catholic, even if you want to bring it up, but you can be anything you want. But, you have to also be a decent human being, and that's barbarian.
Yeah.
How is it in this country that anybody could say that and actually believe it, let alone a governor of a state?
Yeah.
And he was a nice enough guy. I mean, like I said, Southern charm, all this other crap. But the fact is that he actually believed that. And it's shocking. So the problem with the Roe v. Wade leaked decision, and there is some thought that maybe it's not going to come out that way, and maybe the Chief Justice is going to do something, I certainly have hope about that, because I think he's a pretty decent guy. I could be wrong. But anyway, the fact of the matter is the trigger that comes with this across the country, and what the implications are is really what scares people. I don't think that necessarily the Supreme Court's on this path where they're going to reverse all kinds of things. I don't think they're going to reverse gay marriage. I know people are afraid of that. Of course, this could happen, but you've got to watch the testimony of some of these justices when they
Yeah.
were and they actually lied. They asked them point blank. And by the way, Mike, we didn't know each other then, but I said that if you're the president of the United States, you should have the right to appoint anybody you want to the Supreme Court. It comes with the job, right?
Right.
So I actually didn't have a problem with him appointing who he appointed because I thought that that's what happens when you lose elections. Even Kavanaugh, who had his personal problems, to me, okay, whatever. It is what it is. But they played a clip of these people actually saying, no, we think it's settled law and it's blah blah blah. They flat out fucking lied.
Yeah.
And excuse my language, but that's exactly what it was. So on a very simple level, how can you respect that decision? And you know, late term abortion. There are cases where decent people can agree on very very simple set of facts. I don't know anybody who's in favor of late term abortion, but I also don't know anybody who thinks that you know when abortion is necessary to preserve the life of a mother, that is wrong. You know, most people have common sense when it comes to this. You know, is a baby, is a life, does life start at conception, at the moment of conception, or does it take the heartbeat? These are deep philosophical questions, but this has been settled law. And I just don't understand why at this moment when the country is tipping on so many different levels, and you can see the fault lines, and you can see, I don't want to use the wrong words, but you can see almost like a civil war brewing in some areas about certain things. Now,
Yeah, that's what I don't understand, right? So okay, so you have Republicans, okay? They're in control pretty much of the Supreme Court, right? Everybody, why with this midterm coming up and everyone's predicting a red wave tsunami, whatever you want to call it, why would they decide to do this now? Makes no sense.
listen, I mean, they operate on their own. I guess that's what you get with a lifetime appointment.
I
They
get
have no answers.
right,
And
exactly,
but people are right to be critical of the leak, and I understand that. But the leak is not the story. I mean, the leak is the secondary part of the story. Is the second part of the story. It's not it's terrible that anything gets leaked, but it is Washington D.C. It is 2022. Everything gets leaked, right? I mean, there is no such thing as, I was talking to a friend the other day. There's no such thing as a secret. What's a
right.
secret?
Yeah, but that's
I mean,
that's really bad though. A lot of legal people were saying with that leak is the biggest story. I don't know that
yeah.
much about
Well,
it.
listen, if it is a bigger story, I got into it with this guy that we both know, and he's a smart guy and he's a lawyer and whatever. But he commented that it had to be the liberals who leaked this. How the hell do you think it wasn't Justice Alito? How do
Of
you know it
course,
wasn't somebody taking a victory lap saying, "Guess what? We just overturned." I mean, do you think that they would have thought that was a big story and that maybe they wanted to get attention? Because nobody cared. I guarantee you, half the people who were complaining about this decision didn't know who Alito was before. He
right?
wasn't exactly, I mean, he's a Supreme Court justice, but he wasn't exactly Clarence Thomas, who everybody had on the tip of their tongue, you
Yeah,
know. But every day for about a week and a half, it was Alito, 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 Alito. I'd point to him and say, I think he might be the person who leaked the story. The idea that it had to be the Democrats and it had to be a liberal and it had to be some clerk over there who just went rogue, maybe all of the above, but maybe it was a Republican, maybe it was Alito, maybe it was his best friend.
right,
And by the way, let's not forget the fact. I hate to bring it up, but let's not forget the fact that you have a sitting Supreme Court justice whose wife is implicated in the January 6th insurrection, and somehow that's not a huge story. It's unbelievable to me. I mean, it really is shocking to me. But listen,
yeah.
I hope
I,
I
I
hope there's some
I
hope.
think that is a big story. It's a big story, but the cycle is very short here. Our attention
It
span is
is
very,
agreed. It is. It is.
it is a big story. There's a lot of big stories that are just not covered or
If you listen carefully in the news and you hear the change in sentiment in people, for about a month or month and a half, Ukraine was a big story, and I could be wrong. I think, didn't we do something on Ukraine back before
yeah,
our little mini break?
we did. We did.
Okay, so think about then, think about now, and it's still in the news every single day. But you have people who are all of a sudden thinking like, okay, move on to the next story,
Right.
and that is exactly what I think the risk is in 2022 is the fact that we have short attention spans. We have a constant need for new information and new news.
Yep.
We don't have a need for new politicians. I wish we did. We always stick with the same old news, but we have this urge for like, what's the next story? What's the next one? We're
Yeah.
past Ukraine. Let's think about something else. Well, we didn't really do anything to help, or nothing got better, but let's just move on to the next one. So,
Right. Right.
you
You
know,
said it's not exciting anymore. So while the bombs are dropping, while the sirens are going off, we had everybody from every network there on the rooftops. It looked like Mary Poppins. They were on the roofs with the chimneys, and next thing you know, they're back here and they're onto new stories. So
it's an interesting time, but I guess we should wrap it up. But I'm glad that we're doing this again, Mike, and it's nice to whatever, to resurrect what we had started a long time ago, not a long time ago, but about a year ago or so, something like that. And listen, like I said, guys, we're real people, and Mike and I talked the other day, and so we're not going to sugarcoat it. We have our differences. We have our differences of approach, or differences of opinion. I piss him off, he pisses me off. I want to be better about some things. Hopefully you do too.
Yeah,
But
like I told you, I'm starting just to see things that you take the glasses off a little bit, the goggles, whatever they call it, the rose tinted goggles, and you see things for what they are, and it's just we need something. We need good, this country needs good news, no matter who does it. That's why I get really upset with Republicans that are saying they're just sitting back. Up 2020 is going to be a midterm, a big year. Let's do something now. Why aren't they working weekends? Let's do something. I don't know. That whole thing gets me going, and I just don't like.
Well, maybe we timed this reunion back the right way, this reunion the right time, because I think it will be a busy summer. You typically see people go away in August, and and everyone kind of slows down. But with the pending Supreme Court decision, I think it's going to be released sometime in June, if I'm not mistaken. That's going to be a big story. I just have this hope that it's not going to be the way it was leaked out, and maybe I'm just being whatever, but wishful thinking. But
and they do say though, Ray, though, that usually they don't end up the way they're, the first draft or whatever they call it. So who knows what they.
I think, and again, I'm not a lawyer. I don't want to sound like an idiot, but I think that the Supreme Court, the Chief Justice, has a lot of leeway to rehear the case,
right,
or to rewrite the opinion, or to send it back to a different justice to write, or to kind of redo it and do a do-over. Whatever power he has, I really think that he should do it. And again, it's not because I think that Roe versus Wade was some great decision. I don't know if it was or it wasn't, but I understand that it might have been flawed. But I also know that that was the protection that allowed a woman anywhere in this country to have that assurance. And as many other people have said in many other forums, it is not going to be the person. There's still going to be abortion in this country.
right.
It's still going to happen. The issue is going to be who's not going to be able to obtain one when they need it. And, again, to borrow something, I think Bill Maher said this on Friday, if I'm not mistaken, Democrats used to say abortion should be safe, legal, and rare.
Yes.
Safe, legal, and rare. And I think that might have been a Clinton thing. I'm not sure. But whoever came up with that, I think was right. You actually can believe that abortion happens way too much in this country. I do. I think abortion happens way too much. However, I also know that it's not the way that people perceive it to be. I don't think anybody in this country, I mean, I could be wrong, but I don't think people in this country use abortion as a means of birth control. I think what happens is life happens. And I think that, women get pregnant for any number of reasons in any number of situations where it's not ideal for them to have a child. And they have that right to have an abortion, and reasonable people can all agree that an abortion that happens 3-4 weeks in is not the same thing as an abortion that happens much later in a term.
Right.
I think that's where the American public is. I mean, that seems to be where we've been for the last 50 years since Roe was decided.
Right.
But here you have these states, and you've got these right wing. I have to say what it is, Mike. I can't call it anything else. Right wing politicians, mostly men, making decisions for women and saying you are really condemned, is the right word, condemned to carry a child full term. And we all believe that life is a blessing, but not if it originates from rape or incest. I mean, decent people, how could you not agree with that? And I don't know. It's a scary.
Yeah, there's a lot there, Ray, and like I said, I don't have any well-formed opinion on it. I know, whatever happens, hopefully they do the right thing. And because they women that get pregnant, they have a test to see if the fetus is going to be healthy or not. And then they have a decision whether or not they want to bring, a child into the world that's going to be, I don't know, deformed. I'm not a doctor. I play one on TV, but I'm not a doctor. That will have problems later on. So they give them the option, I guess, of
we scratched the surface, Mike. We and again, I don't believe in identity crap. I don't think that I don't play this whole. All I'm saying is that when it comes to this issue, we have to think of it from this perspective. We as men are really just putting ourselves, scratching the surface, and projecting and saying, well, incest. Listen, a woman could have any number of reasons that we can't understand as to why she feels as though she needs an abortion. But the
Right.
reality of it is that if a woman decides that she needs an abortion, and not you, but society decides that she's not entitled to one for whatever reasons, and we have no mechanism to help that woman or to see, what I'm trying to say is I'm trying to use the standard Democratic line, which is if you cared so much about children, not you, but the Republicans, if they cared so much about children, so much about life, it's you. There's memes about this. I wish I could remember. I saw a few good ones, but all that ends the minute the child is born. That's
Right.
how it feels. That's how it seems, And again, I do not believe that. I do believe abortion happens too often. I do think that there's a role for increased education regarding it, reducing the number of abortions in this country. I'll repeat the line. Safe, legal, and rare. I think that's the right approach on this important issue. But
And real quick, right? Someone commented. I think it was Frank before that commented. Can you deduct a 10-month-old or a 10-week-old from your taxes? Claim them as a
right. That's one of the memes I saw also,
right,
Frank. You're right.
right. So
Right.
you can't do that.
Right.
But
I did
for
see that
example,
also.
do you remember Lacey Peterson and Scott Peterson in
Yes.
California? He
She
killed
charged
her,
murder. Yeah.
right? In 2 counts of murder. So
Right.
they did consider it a life. So it's tough. It's a tough one, and I'm glad I don't have to make the decision. And I just, like I said, I hope they do the right thing. And I really don't have an opinion. I just, hope just to do the right thing.
Let me just see if I okay, so Eva did comment. I'm fucking terrible. Excuse my language when it comes to these comments because I just read them. I have to scroll through my phone. But anyway, she wrote, "Why aren't the females who still minors not being seen as children who need to be protected?" Right. So if a girl has a baby, why don't we look at her as actually a child who needs to be protected?
Mhm.
Okay. Arthur wrote, sorry, got to sign off for now. We'll be back. Look out for the videotape. Okay. All right. Well, look, I'm sorry if I butchered these comments. I'll try to be better about it next week, Mike. We got to figure that out.
Yeah, and I do see up top, right, because I see that you have it shared with your friends only. So I think that's maybe why the comment doesn't appear here. So we'll figure it out either way. But
anyway, it's fun to do this again. Thanks, Mike. Sorry about our little dust up. Anything I did that precipitated it, I don't know. But we'll try to move forward and try to address the issues. I think we got a good name, right? We'll focus on Long Island, talk about a little bit of national, a little bit of international, everything that comes our way. But we are the Long Island Show, and we're back. And
that's right.
Let's see how we do.
All right. So everybody, thanks again for watching. And if you have any ideas or suggestions or you want to be part of the show, let us know and we'll talk about it.
I've now become camouflaged with the tree behind me, right?
You're fading away fast. So let's say goodnight and we'll
see.
The
only thing you can see is the gray hair, right? Like that's
yes.
All right.
Everybody.
Good night, Mike.
Good night.
Good night.
Come on, man. And the kids used to come up and reach in the pool and rub my leg down so it was straight and then watch the hair come back up again.
ダメよダメなのよあんたが好きで好きすぎて